Hello there, villagers. Welcome back to another video here in Stacy's Random POV. And yes, as you guys can see, I am expecting a beautiful, wonderful bundle of joy. And my husband and I couldn't be even more excited about this matter. And yeah, like we're just super excited for this beautiful addition to our family and wish us luck with everything. But with that already out of the way, we are here to discuss the Heritage Foundation's Esther project. And if you guys did not know, there's been a lot of discussion in regard to this project. And I brought you guys some videos that we are going to watch at the end of this clip, right? And I just wanted to say to please like and comment because it helps us reach people who enjoy this type of topics, who enjoy the type of discussion that I like to bring to my channel, to this platform. And I'm just so excited. And also, if you subscribe, you become a member of this amazing village. Nobody judges people here in this village. This is a very progressive thinking village. So, what I've managed to gather about the Heritage Foundations Esther Project is that it is an anti Semitic movement. So it's going to basically police the conversation surrounding the Israeli government, Iran, and Hamas situation, and the pro Palestinian conversation. In my opinion, I believe this is a very dangerous one. But in later on in this video, you will hear creators think that it is in conjunction or in connection to the Christian nationalist movement. I was born and raised Jehovah Witness. And before I left at my older teenage years, and one thing I can tell you is that the main thing that they focus on, besides the end of this system of things, is also how the government will turn against religion, and I'm starting to see now as an adult why this may come to be when it comes to the Esther project. But I'm not here to try to convert you because I don't practice that anymore. But one thing I can tell you is that the problem with this entire project is that it will police your belief, your religion. So, with that being said, I am not going to take too much of your time. Thank you for everyone who congratulated me with my bundle of joy. And I am going to play to you guys what other people had to say in regards to Project Esther through the Heritage Foundation. I can't wait for our discussion to start in the comments down below because this is a very interesting topic to discuss about. And I'll see you guys on my next video. Bye.
In the New York Times that takes a deep dive into Project Esther, a policy blueprint from the far-right Heritage Foundation, best known for creating Project 2025. Project Esther was launched October 7, 2024, and lays out plans for surveilling, silencing, and punishing pro-Palestinian activists, including deporting non-U.S. citizens. New York Times investigative reporter KDJM Baker spoke to the people behind Project Esther for her new piece. The group behind Project 2025 has a plan to crush the pro-Palestinian movement. Katie joins us now to explain. Welcome to Democracy Now! It's great to have you with us. What did you find?
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, so I found that the architects behind Project Esther said that it's no coincidence that what we're seeing in terms of actions taken against universities and pro-Palestinian protesters on a federal, state, and local level is happening months after they released their report.
So the Forward had originally talked about this kind of white paper of the Heritage Foundation, but you went much further. You named names and talked to people behind Project Esther. Tell us who they are.
So the woman overseeing Project Esther is Victoria Coates. She is a former national security advisor to Trump during his first administration, and she has a long history of working on Israeli matters. And then Robert Greenway ran the Abraham Accords, and he's one of the co-authors of Project Esther.
And if you can talk about what exactly their plans are and how many Jewish groups are involved in shaping Project Esther as they talk about, as the leaders of Project Esther talk about combating anti-Semitism.
Yeah, so Project Esther aims to rebrand all critics of Israel and pro-Palestinian protesters as providing material support for terrorism. So that means that anyone who's ever participated in a pro-Palestinian protest at a university, for example, is potentially providing material support and should be fired or deported or otherwise ostracized from what they call open society. And there's not very many Jewish groups involved in this project. There are a few, but the task force that inspired Project Esther was primarily Christian and right-wing organizations.
Have you heard of Project Esther? This is part 2 of what Project Esther is, how it aligns with Project 2025 and Trump's involvement with both. In future videos I will break down all 33 pages of Project Esther page by page. So let's get into part 2, shall we? To start off, let's take a look at side-by-side quotes of Project 2025 versus Project Esther. Project 2025. The president must have direct control. DEI bureaucracies must be dismantled. Dismantle agency autonomy, treat internal threats as insurgencies. Project Esther. Organize and guide all willing partners, fostered under the guise of DEI, name and shame campaigns. HSN is a threat to the American soul. The interpretation. Project 2025 militarizes the state. Project Esther militarizes the culture. Together, they form an authoritarian pincer movement, one controlling government, the other controlling society. Trump's alignment. Donald Trump is not just adjacent to these plans, he's executing them. With Project 2025, advocates for Schedule F, total executive control and anti-day purges. Surrounds himself with Heritage Foundation alumni and ideological loyalists. With Project Esther, Trump praises campus crackdowns, calls student protesters terrorists, echoes the language of national threat, ideological subversion, and unconditional loyalty to Israel. Project 2025 governs the state. Project Esther governs the soul. Together, they attempt to remake America into a single ideology regime where dissent is danger and loyalty is law. Like I mentioned in part 1 and at the beginning of this video, I will break down all 33 pages of Project Esther. After I complete page 300 of Project 2025, hit the like and follow button if you want to know more about Project Esther.
So wait. So there's this thing called Project Esther. And I just discovered this, and it's part of Project 2025. These people literally watched The Handmaid's Tale and thought, yeah, that's the instruction manual, and I'm not even kidding. So in the Bible, Queen Esther saved her people from genocide by a guy named Haman who wanted to wipe out all the Jews. Technically, it's a beautiful story about courage and standing up to power, right? Well, the Heritage Foundation, the same geniuses behind Project 2025, they're using the story to justify crushing pro-Palestinian protesters, deporting students, and silencing anyone who questions Israeli policy. They named their censorship project after a woman who literally spoke truth to power to stop persecution. These folks took a story about preventing genocide and turned it into a blueprint for selective persecution. It's like reading Romeo and Juliet as a guide to successful teen dating, or using 1984 as a government handbook. They watched Gilead on Hulu and said, ooh, sign me up, except instead of red robes, it's deportation orders. Instead of handmaids, it's silenced students. The theocracy is the same, just different targets. Let's not kid ourselves. This is not about protecting Jewish people from anti-Semitism. Real Jewish organizations wouldn't even partner with them. This is about weaponizing religious stories to justify authoritarianism. When the Heritage Foundation says they want to extirpate the influence of pro-Palestinian groups, they're not channeling Queen Esther, they're channeling Hamas. And they're targeting Jewish Voice for Peace too. Jewish organizations supporting Palestinian rights are somehow part of their terrorist network. And when they use religious stories to justify oppression, that's not faith, that's fundamentalism with a marketing budget. And if you think you're safe because you're not their current target, remember, in Gilead, they came for different groups one by one. The Trump administration has already started implementing this playbook. Students getting deported for protesting. Universities losing funding for allowing pro-Palestinian speech. Faculty getting fired. Sound familiar? It should. It's literally right out of the Handmaid's playbook. Just with better lawyers. And the real Queen Esther would be horrified if it wasn't a fake story. She risked everything to protect the vulnerable from a man who wanted to wipe them out. These people risk nothing to silence those speaking up for the vulnerable. Don't let them gaslight you into thinking surveillance is a salvation or that censorship is compassion. That's not biblical. That's just authoritarian with better PR. When they come for free speech in the name of fighting anti-Semitism while ignoring actual neo-Nazis, you know it's not really about protecting anyone. And they read the story backwards. Esther was the resistance, not the regime. She spoke up when it was dangerous, not when it was profitable. If you want to honor Queen Esther's legacy, question power, don't worship it. Share, like, and comment.
Remember in my last video I said, keep your eyes on the moving objects, because even though they want you to pay attention right here, in the media, wherever, there's something going on in the background, right? So here's why the thing that's in front of you is not just a distraction, it's possibly a cover, because while your attention is being pulled over there, they're doing something right here and over there. But right now we're talking about Project Esther. But what it feels like is like Operation Waterback. We gonna call it that. Just rebrand with a better website and a few headlines, right? So let me try to put it plain. Like ICE didn't hold a press conference. They didn't want your attention. They just rolled it out quietly, deliberately, and with precision, right? And who are they going after? Y'all should know this answer. Undocumented women and children. We know about the men, right? But mostly people from Latin America. Fast, silent, with no time for a warning, no phone call. You can't call nobody. They just snatching, detaining, and deporting. Not even checking, not even asking questions. Sound familiar? Because it should. Because back in 1954, they called it Operation Waterback. Y'all know the real word. Over 1 million people pushed out. Some were U.S. citizen, no trial, no process, no rights. 1954. Just like that, you don't belong here. And here we are again. It's the same play. It's the new stage. It's the same play. It's the new stage. But here's the twist. Project Esther is quiet. No barking orders, no mobs, just soft language, sterile policies, and a polished rollout. But don't be fooled. We shouldn't be fooled by this, because behind the curtain, mothers are missing. I've been asking y'all, where are all these women? They don't show any women. Well, what about the children who are crying because they're missing? Their families are being shattered in real time. And while the media is busy elsewhere, this thing is growing. People been saying this, like, think again. Visa overstays, work permits caught in backlog, students under review, your neighbor who's waiting on the green card. Project Esther starts with the vulnerable, but it won't stop there, right? Because this ain't just about borders, it's about control, right? Because fear and power is that thing. Fear the people, but take control of the people. It's the government testing how silence will swallow those in the vulnerable communities, right? What makes you think yours won't be next? How do we even come to this? See, I know what I'm capable of because I served the United States Marine Corps and also the Navy. So I'm trained to do certain things. So I've always been locked and ready, if you get what I'm saying. So what about other people? I don't know, y'all. I'm still looking at what this Project Esther is doing, but I'm seeing tears every day. And I feel like if it's not in your own backyard or on your front porch, people are not going to care. But wait until they pick up your multicultural daughter, son, grandchild, because they believe. I'm just leaving it right there. What are we doing, people?
Think Project 2025 is scary? Meet its secret little sister, Project Esther. The plan turns protest signs into terror support. Here's a quick breakdown. Number 1, it's written by the Heritage Foundation folks. Dropped October 7th, 2024. Number 2, the goal, relabel pro-Palestinian groups, yes, even Jewish Voice for Peace, as Hamas networks. Number 3, the toolbox, yank student visas, sue big donors, pressure colleges to defund protest, and shove dangerous speech off social media. Number 4, half the blueprint is already echoing in the Trump-era memos for 2025. So if you're cool with dissent equaling terrorism, carry on. Otherwise, maybe read the 73-page playbook before you.
I saw a video where a woman was talking about the Esther Project, which is another project that the Heritage Foundation has. It's not just Project 2025. So I decided to look it up, and this is what their webpage says. America's virulently anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, and anti-American pro-Palestinian movement is part of a global Hamas support network that is trying to compel the U.S. government to abandon its long-standing support for Israel. Supported by activists and funders dedicated to the destruction of capitalism and democracy, the HSN benefits from the support and training of America's overseas enemies and seeks to achieve its goals by taking advantage of our open society, corrupting our education system, leveraging the American media, co-opting the federal government, and relying on the American Jewish community's complacency. So they've decided to make a little task force. The National Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism intends to enlist all willing and able partners in a coordinated effort to combat the scourge of anti-Semitism in the United States. It's almost as if they believe that the world revolves around Jews. It doesn't. Now, as someone who has no problem with anybody because they're Jewish, I've never been anti-Semitic. I haven't even had many Jewish friends at all. But if I did, I would never have a problem with them for any reason. But I do have a problem with Zionism. I am anti-Zionist. Zionism is made up. Being a Jew is not. Anybody can be a Zionist. And another thing, being pro-Palestine, aka believing that the people who already live there should be able to continue to live there freely without being invaded and massacred, has nothing to do with America. Wanting people to live freely has nothing to do with America. What does being pro-Palestinian have to do with America? How does that make you anti-American? There's no correlation between the two. You know what all of this messaging says? White supremacy. That's what it says. That is the problem of this planet. White supremacists of all races. There are coons in every shape and size and race. So any countries, whether it be in Africa, India, South America, any leaders, any people who side with this bullshit, who side with white supremacy, are in the way of any kind of global progress. I hate to break it to you. No, actually, I love to break it to y'all. White people are the minority on this planet. The minority. You are vastly outnumbered. And you want to still hold on to your privilege and white supremacy. That's why you don't want the world to be siding with Palestine. Because Israel is one of your white supremacist little projects. You want people to support this colonial state that is putting itself there, playing victim, and then bombing everybody else brown around them. You put a bunch of Europeans that also happen to be Jews into a state, establishing it on top of people who were already there, and then crying victim when they fight back. And if you're not doing that, you're bombing Damascus, you're bombing this, you're bombing that, and you want people to side with that? You want people to acknowledge white supremacy. You want people to act like you're supposed to be in power. That whiteness is supposed to be the world power. No, fuck you. No. Why would you belong in power as the minority on the planet? You're the minority. We outnumber you. We are not people of color. We're the majority. Your reign is ending and you're waffling. You're holding on for dear life. It's ending, whether you like it or not. People who have empathy and support Palestine have nothing to do with Hamas and whatever fucking support network you're making up. Not to mention the people protesting for Palestine, the reason they can do that is because of democracy. Because of democracy. We don't want to destroy democracy, but what is capitalism doing for the globe? Destroying it! It's destroying the globe. Y'all want to do everything monetarily without consequence. You want AI with no regulation. You want to hoard riches while the masses are in poverty. Why shouldn't capitalism be gone? Because you connect capitalism with white supremacy, clearly, because it must have been what y'all came up with. The idea of capitalism must have been made by white people. So you want that to stay alive too. You want all your institutions to survive, including colonization. Too bad, so sad. It's not happening. Guys, whether you're aware of it or not, whether you're awake to it or not, things are not going to stay peaceful much longer. They're really not. Because white supremacists want to hurt people. They want to do it. So protesting and all these peaceful measures aren't going to last. They're not going to work anymore. These people are willing to work together with like-minded people to craft these plans, and I don't think it's going to end in peace. I don't. So we need to come together with like-minded people and plan ahead. Plan ahead. Because I'm tired of waiting for this shit to happen. Like, shit is going to hit the fan.
If you think Project 2025 was bad, you haven't even heard about Project Esther, and that's exactly how they planned it to be. They want you distracted by Project 2025 because while everyone's eyes are on that, Project Esther is laying the groundwork for something 1,000 times more dangerous. Think surveillance, suppression, sterilization, religious authoritarianism, all of the above. Project 2025 is the beginning of the manifesto. I don't think people realize that. And it's nowhere near as bad as what it could be. The targeting women, targeting queer people, targeting DEI, targeting anything that doesn't fit biblical values is the beginning to lay the groundwork for Project Esther. And it's not just a legislative plan, it's a theological one, which if you don't know what theology is, it's basically the study of God. It is, of course, backed by Christian nationalists, big surprise there. It has roots in dominionism, which basically is the idea that humans should have the ability to exploit and control other living things, including other humans, plants, nature, whatnot. In the realm of government, it essentially means the idea of conservatives, especially conservative Christians, to take control of secular civil government and use it as a religious force. Project Esther quite literally aims to replace the Constitution with biblical law. Not figuratively, I mean literally. It quite literally aims to do that. It calls for the things like criminalization of abortion as murder, a national ban, of course, mandatory submission of women to male authority, bans on anything LGBTQ+, think same-sex marriages, gender fluidity, all of it gone. Religious homeschooling to replace public schools and private. Literally, what a lot of Utah cults do think that. And yes, you guessed it, re-education camps for those who resist. They're not even hiding their agenda at all. And here's where it gets so much darker and where it physically makes me ill to think about. Project Esther claims to honor the legacy of Queen Esther, a Jewish woman who saved hundreds of her people from genocide. This same agenda is being championed by individuals and institutions deeply, and I mean deeply, aligned with white supremacists and Nazi rhetoric, something that is very anti-Semitic. The Heritage Foundation, the writers of Project 2025 and Project Esther, has time and time again backed figures who quote Hitler, push replacement therapy, and use Nazi-coded language like degeneracy, purity, bloodlines, whatnot. You get the point. So tell me how an initiative claiming to stand against anti-Semitism is supporting and endorsing people who glamorize the ideology that had 6 million plus Jews slaughtered.
What if I told you there's a plan to revoke your visa, fire your professor, shut down your club just because what you believe? It's real. It's called Project Esther. It came from the Heritage Foundation. So in 2024, the Heritage Foundation, a powerful conservative think tank, released a strategy called Project Esther. On the surface, it claims to fight anti-Semitism. But in reality, it's a blueprint to criminalize dissent, especially if you criticize Israel or support Palestine. They invented a new label, Hamas Support Network. Under that label, they've started to treating protests, tweets, student groups, even professors as potential threats. The plan is not in theory. It's already in motion. Visa revoked, student deported, social media absolutely monitored, faculty fired, campus protests shut down. They don't need proof. They just need you to be different because in their system, difference is dangerous. Now, let me get this straight. In the United States, you can criticize the government all you want, right? Although nothing will change, okay? However, once you start to criticize Israel, which is a foreign government, you will get into trouble. What kind of logic is this? Please, can someone please explain to this Chinese guy? This is so confusing, guys. You think staying quiet will keep you safe? Think again. They're not going after extremists. They're going after students, workers, artists, anyone who speaks up. They will push this further. Project Esther is not just a policy, it's a warning, and the Heritage Foundation wants it to enforce it now.
A new memorandum came out in June from Pam Bondi and Trump, and it states things like, if we don't like what you're doing, we can strip your citizenship away from you. It also talks about things like combating discrimination and ending anti-Semitism and keeping our women and children safe from gender-affirming care. Now, this sounds a lot like Project Esther, where they were going to now deem people terrorist groups, part of the Hamas network, if you said anything that was anti-Israel. Well, here's what I want you to think about with Project Esther. How come the only religious people covering it are evangelicals? Why aren't Jewish groups all for a fight against anti-Semitism? Well, I'll tell you why. Because it reeks of 1930s and 40s Germany with deportation, with visa revocations, with surveillance. It's about power. It's about AIPAC. It's about the Israeli government.
Some say Project Esther is worse than Project 2025, and most people still haven't heard of it. So here's what it is, what it's doing, and why it's dangerous. Project Esther was created by the Heritage Foundation, like Project 2025, and while it claims to fight anti-Semitism, it's really a blueprint for political repression. It redefines terrorism so broadly that peaceful protests, campus organizing, and criticism of Israeli policy are all treated as national security threats. It doesn't just target violence, it targets dissent. If you're speaking up for Palestinian rights, you could be branded as anti-American, or worse. The political act is being rebranded as criminal to erase political progress. And we're already seeing the consequences. Students at Columbia, Stanford, and UCLA are now under federal investigation, not for breaking laws, but for protesting genocide. Project Esther encourages stripping visas, surveilling students, and shutting down campus organizing, all through immigration law and bureaucratic language that hides the real goal, silencing opposition. They're not protecting anyone, they're punishing resistance, and the scariest part is, it weaponizes the very real pain of anti-Semitism to shut down real activism. Instead of confronting hate from white supremacist groups, the actual drivers of anti-Semitic violence, it redirects that fear towards Muslim students, black activists, and even Jewish organizations critical of Israeli policy. And if you think it won't happen to you, remember, repression never stops with one group. First they come for the protesters, then the organizers, then the students, then the professors, then the people who simply post their support on social media. They're already watching your feed, already building lists. If we don't speak up now, we'll all be silent by design.
Oh, you thought Project 2025 was scary, but you haven't heard about Project Esther yet, have you? While we've all been distracted worrying about Project 2025 and looking at statistics to see how much of it has actually come to fruition at this point, back in October of 2024, the Heritage Foundation submitted Project Esther, and I'm telling you, it's 1,000 times worse than Project 2025 could ever dream of. Project 2025 is just the beginning of this manifesto. And making a comparison, The Handmaid's Tale, that was the first book. The 6 seasons we watched, that was the first book. There are others, just like Project 2025 was the prologue to what's about to happen with Project Esther. Reading Project 2025, it spoke very clearly about eradicating all religions from the United States. There will only be one God and one Bible, and it will be forced upon you. It is forced practice of religion. You will not be allowed to speak of any other God. You will not be allowed to read any material outside of that Bible. And if you try to practice anything outside of what you are forced to practice, they will imprison you and put you to death. Project Esther also speaks about surveillance. They want us having something inside of our bodies that is implanted, where the government knows our whereabouts, knows our medical history, our heart rate, our sugar, everything on a 24/7 basis. It talks about suppression, ladies. It talks about the fact that we are no longer considered people. We are the property of our husbands, meaning we no longer can drive, vote, have a bank account, go grocery shopping, wear what we want, have our hair the style that we want it. We are forced to be the property of our husbands. And women, it speaks about sterilization. It speaks about when women are born, when girls are born, being immediately sterilized after birth. And when you become of age to have a baby, they will grow said baby in a lab and implant it in you so that they can have the white male child that they want for this Project Esther to come to fruition. According to Project Esther, there is no more LGBTQI+. It's gone. It's eradicated because there are no more lesbian and gay people in the United States. That's right. If you're male and you're gay, you have an opportunity to become straight. And if you choose not to become straight, then you will be put to death immediately. And women, they don't really give a fuck if you're a lesbian or not because you still have a working womb. So you'll be forced to marry a man anyway, and oh well, just deal with it. Project Esther isn't just a legislative plan. It's a theological plan as well, with roots in dominionism. And if you don't know what that means, it means having control over all living things, human beings, plants, animals. It means that as a man, you control everything like a god. It states very clearly in Project Esther that it has been written to replace the Constitution of the United States with biblical law. That is the whole purpose of Project Esther. Criminalization of abortion with death penalty being the reward will be a national thing for all of us. It won't matter state by state anymore what your governor and your senator say. As a nation, abortion will be criminal and you will be put to death. All public and private schooling will be completely eradicated. All children will be homeschooled through religion. And the best part, chat, for anybody who resists, for anybody who defies this particular law, there are re-education camps to repurpose your brain, to make you more compliant and willing to be a servant of Project Esther's law. By the way, none of this is written in code. I'm not assuming or coming up with ideas based off what I read. No, this is quite literally how it's written. Very, very, very blunt for all of us to completely understand what we're about to face. Project Esther, like Project 2025, was written by the Heritage Foundation, so it's obviously backed by Christian nationalists. But it is so deeply rooted in white supremacy and Nazi rhetoric that it literally makes my skin crawl. And if it doesn't make your skin crawl, I need you to go right ahead and run this shit back and listen to what I say.
Project Esther? How about Project Let's Remove the Heritage Foundation from this earth? And the funny thing is, I haven't actually looked at anything about it for the most part. I've seen bits and pieces, but to be honest, we all know how they are and what they're about. So, yeah. Nothing that comes from them is good, period. We saw that with Project 2025. And even the bits and pieces that I saw of this weren't good. Not at all.